Hello and welcome to another video. My name's Mark, I'm an entrepreneur and property investor, and in today's video we're going to be going through the 95% mortgages and what that could mean for you if you're a first-time buyer, or if you're not a first-time buyer and you're an investor, what it could potentially mean for the property market. So I think rather than doing a long intro, let's just get straight into it and go to the whiteboard. It's Whiteboard Wednesday. Boom. Hello and welcome to the whiteboard, and we're going to be talking about 5% mortgages or 95% mortgages, depending on which way around you look at this. Now, the first thing I'm going to do in this video is talk about it from a first-time buyer or somebody who's just getting involved in property for the first time, their perspective. Because for them, I think that this is a really good piece of news, and it allows people access to the housing market that otherwise may not have been able to save up a large enough deposit to purchase a house in the area that they're living in. Before, they may have been forced into Help to Buy, and we all know how successful and how popular that scheme has been. And that's led to new builds being able to charge a premium on their product because people who've got a small deposit will be able to access the Help to Buy scheme, but only on new builds. But this 95% mortgage, the mortgage guarantee scheme as it's known, that's available to everybody in the UK if they're a first-time buyer. So this will really open the market up for people who maybe haven't been able to save up a huge deposit. Now, I'll give you a good real-life example of this. And first of all, we'll go through the pros of this and what it all means, and a bit of the cons, because there are some negatives. You know, the interest rate, for example, is quite high. The cheapest one at the moment is 3.45% with Barclays, and I've just secured a buy-to-let mortgage with Santander for 1.69% on a 2-year fixed. So I know that that's a fairly expensive interest rate, but the pros are quite significant, and it will allow somebody to get access to the market that otherwise might not be able to. So let's have a look first of all. Now, the mortgage guarantee scheme differs from the Help to Buy scheme because it allows you to purchase any property. It's not specifically for new builds. So that opens up the whole market, and it's bound to have an impact on the house prices from properties of the lower end, and that will trickle up because people who move out the 2 beds will then move into 3 beds. As their 2 bed inflates in price, demand will trickle through the market. So this is available for absolutely anybody who's a first-time buyer and wants to get on the housing market. They still have to pass affordability, so they still have to be able to afford a mortgage. But for a lot of people, they could afford the mortgage, but they didn't have the deposit. And this allows the lender to have that 20% additional guarantee from the government in order to know that they are never going to take any losses on that property. It basically insulates them for a 25% market crash, you know, which is the deepest crash in UK history, certainly in living memory anyway. Let's have a look at the pros and cons anyway. So first of all, it's capital only, which means that you do have to repay the capital and interest each month. You can't just do interest only on this mortgage. Because your deposit's so low, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think ultimately you do need to build up some level of insulation within a property. And I'm not a big believer in lots of government interventions into free markets. So I think that the sooner that you can start to take out some of that intervention, the better. Now, if we look at the guarantee, it only covers the lender against losses, which means ultimately the house will need to be sold. As soon as the losses are crystallised, then the government will pay out to make sure that the lender is supported. But I don't think that that's ever going to happen, and I'll tell you why in a minute, because I think that the plan for the housing market is it's going to get more expensive. So the other thing is to remember that you're still responsible for the whole balance, which means if the property goes up, you own all the property, you also own all the debt. If the property goes up, you benefit. If the property goes down in value, it's all your loss. The government's just going to cover the lender if you can no longer afford to make your payments and you're going to be forced into selling the property. I think for most people taking out this scheme, this isn't really going to apply. I think the property market, again, is likely to continue to rise, and I'll go into that in a minute. The other thing to bear in mind is that the rates are significantly higher than commercial mortgages on a similar sort of deposit level. 25% mortgage, you're nowhere near 3.5%. However, with the 95% with the 20% guarantee, 3.5% was the cheapest that I could find, and that was with Barclays. So significantly higher interest rates, slightly higher payments, but it does mean ultimately somebody may be able to get access to the market that otherwise wouldn't be able to. So let's have a look at a real world example of how, if you were a first time buyer, this could work for you. So I'm going to use an area that I know, Northamptonshire, and I'm just going to say with 200,000, you could buy between a 3 and a 4 bedroom house, depending on which town and area you looked at. With that, you'd be able to borrow The best part of this, so you'd be able to borrow 190,000, meaning your deposit would only need to be 10k. That massively changes the dynamic for you being able to get onto the housing market if you only have to save up £10,000 in order to buy a 200 grand house. Obviously, if you want to buy a 100 grand house, you're only saving up 5 grand. It's making it far, far more affordable for people to get onto the market. Your mortgage in this instance on a 200 grand house, you'd be able to buy a 2, 3 or a 4 bedroom house, depending on your area. It would give you a £946 per month. And for someone like me who house hacked at the beginning of my journey, I'd take a 3 bedroom or a 4 bedroom, I'd rent out 2 of the rooms, and I'd make about £900 a month in the Northamptonshire area, renting those rooms out. And that would almost cover my entire mortgage payment. I'd then benefit from all the capital appreciation, I'd benefit from all the capital repayment, and I would be in a much, much better position in 2, 3, 4 years' time. As the property prices increase, as my equity increases, I'll be able to really get onto my investing journey. So would I do this if I was in the beginning of my journey and I had £10,000? Absolutely. It'd be the first place I would look. I would look to try and buy something where I could house hack, rent out those spare rooms, and really start getting that money coming in and getting somebody else adding to my wealth. I know from experience that can massively change the game over a 2 to 5 year period. So that's what it means for first-time buyers. That's what it means for people who can use the scheme. What does it mean for investors like myself who maybe are looking at this going, well, that doesn't really apply to me, but it does apply to us. It's got lots of indicators. There's lots of reasons we want to take note of this. First of all, the government are there to represent all of us, which means them taking a guaranteed stake. It's called the Mortgage Guarantee Scheme, remember? Guaranteed stake in every mortgage written to first-time buyers tells you one thing about this property market. They are not going to let it go down. It is only going to inflate. And that would ring true, right? Prices at the moment are accelerating. It's the hottest markets it's been ever since 2004. I think we looked at the last video. Hottest market ever. So it would ring true that prices are likely to continue to increase. We've printed more money. We can expect more inflation. So I think the government are looking at this very cleverly as a way of stimulating growth while costing zero. And the reason is that they're not having to provide an equity stake. They're just simply having to guarantee in the event that this property was to be sold at a loss, we would step in and cover that guarantee. Now, if you engineer an environment where that's never going to happen, this is a zero cost scheme that will ultimately just allow people to get in a better financial position, allow you to inflate some of the debt away, allow you to put yourself and the country back on the road to recovery without actually implying any cost whatsoever. I think it's genius. I actually really, really like this scheme, and I love what it's likely to do for house prices. So my reality is first-time buyers are in a much stronger position. They can now start to buy at the lower end of the market in bigger volumes, and that will mean 1, 2 and 3 bedroom properties will start to increase in value. As they do, the people who are currently living in them and might want to buy the next level up will start to demand the next level up. This is a trickle-up policy. This is one of those ones where people will start entering the market at the bottom, start driving that market up, and the rest of the market will follow. And I'm a big believer that economically speaking, this is likely just to accelerate the house prices as they are at the moment. And I think when the government's taking a guaranteed stake in anything like this, and they have the ability to manipulate the prices, which we do through monetary easing and through bonds and interest rates and all the rest. I mean, I know the Bank of England is supposed to be completely independent, but the reality is, in a pandemic like this, people have to work together. And the whole likelihood is that this scheme has been designed with one aim in mind, and that is to make sure that first-time buyers can get on the market, that prices will continue to rise, and that everybody can afford to participate in what's likely to be one of the biggest booms in wealth in the UK. So that's my opinion of it. Let me know down below in the comments what your opinion is. I think it's great for first-time buyers. I think it's great for investors, anybody who's participating in the property market. I think it's great. As a country, I think it's great because it allows everybody to participate in the market. And from the government's perspective and from my perspective as a stakeholder in UK PLC, it's likely that it's going to cost me absolutely zero whilst providing great returns for a lot of people. But as I said, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. I really appreciate you watching. I've been Mark Parham. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Give it a big like, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.